Okay. I see you 2 more times after today. So today we're reviewing for the exam. Thursday we're reviewing for the exam. And your exam is the following Thursday. So I don't see y'all Tuesday next week. Because Monday and Tuesday are your o'clock exams. 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Anything that ends in a 00, those are your exams Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday are your 30 exams. 9:30, 12:30, whatever. So your exam with me is 9:30 to 11:30 in this room. It's going to be 33, all multiple choice. It's going to be on the computer. I'll pop your computers up. You can use your calculator. I will give you a formula sheet, and I will give you scratch paper. Okay? So that's what we have left. We also, I think I've reviewed everybody's Chapter 7 and 6 test and added the 5 points from Success Day, Career Day, whatever that day was. So those updated test grades are in there. And the only thing that y'all have left is that all homework is due, is it Wednesday? 11/29. So tomorrow night at midnight, all homework is due. Tomorrow night at midnight. Okay? So that's all we have left. We good? So what I'm going to do today is start reviewing, and if I get through all of this, I'll go ahead, because I think I put too much on Thursday. But we're just going to review, and review. Also remember, just like with every other test, I have under the Do Homework button, the very last assignment, which does not close on the 29th. Your very last assignment does not have a due date. That is what your exam is based on. And I tell people that this is even harder than your exam because this is not multiple choice. You have to provide the answers for me. Okay? This does not affect your average. None of the reviews affect your average. So it doesn't affect your average, but if you want to do well, do the exam review. Now, we did talk about last time how to figure out what you need to make on the exam to get the given grade. So I left that out there. You take your overall average right now going into the exam, multiply it by 0.80, plus what you think you're going to make on the final times 0.20. Okay? So your average going into the exam, I just picked an 82.1, but whatever you have in your grade book in my math lab, multiply that by 80%, plus what you think you're going to make on the exam times the other 20%. And that can kind of give you an idea. I mean, I worked it out here that if I made 100 on the exam, the only thing that's going to change is my exam grade. If I make 100 on the exam, the highest grade that I can end up with, if I go into the exam with 82.1 and make 100 on the exam, the highest thing I can end up with is an 85.68. So there's no way, if I have an 82.1, there's no way I'm going to make an A. Okay? So then I played, all I did was play with this one grade. Because this is 80%, this is 20%, and the only thing y'all really have left, so I did at 100, that's going to be my highest average. I put in a 70, and I barely made a B. So to keep my B, I had to make a 70 or higher. And then I went down and went down and went down, and I think it ended up, for this problem, I couldn't make an A. I had to make a 70 or higher to get a B on the exam. So this was my exam. So yeah, I couldn't make an A. 70 or higher would give me a B. Then I went down and said, okay, what if I make a 30? A 30 still gave me a C. A 25 still gave me a C. So if I make a 25 to a 69 on the exam, I'll get a C. So then I went in and said, okay, what if I make a 0? If I make a 0 on the exam, I'm still going to make a D. So a 0 to a 24 gave me a D, and even if I made a 0 on the exam, I still couldn't fail the class. Cool? This just kind of gives you a reality check because some of y'all are already getting in that stress, I'm freaking out mode. What do I need to study for the most? So, I mean, I want you to study for everything, but I also want to give you a reality check. So, that's going to be out there. I will post what we do today under lecture notes from this semester And I have a little spot right here for final exam review notes. So now we are ready. What I did, and this is just to make it so that I can do as much as I can in a single period, I went to the handouts button, I went to the final exam review spreadsheet, and then, just like for every other test, I gave you, this is your 33 questions that's going to be on the test. Remember, your exam is not in the order of the spreadsheet. And all I literally did is I went to number 1. Number 1 says, determine whether it's a sample statistic or a population parameter in the book. These are the problems. So I literally copied number 1 off the spreadsheet and put it right here. And then I went in the book and I found some problems like it. Okay, so we're going to go through all 33 of these questions and make sure that we know how to do everything. So, these are from the spreadsheet. It tells you what number it is. Remember, your exam is all multiple choice and is not in the same order as this. I'm just doing it from chapter 1 to chapter 8 because that's how I had it on the sheet. So, you have one question on your exam where the directions say, determine whether the value is a sample statistic or a population parameter. So is it about a sample or is it about a population? This is what we did in the very beginning when you didn't realize that you had it easy. In a Gallup poll of 18 adults in the U.S., it is found that 22% smoke cigarettes. Am I talking about data about a sample or data about a population?
Sample.
We asked a group of people, and this is the data on that group of people. So this one is going to be a sample statistic. You with me? Mariana's going, holy crap, I missed that one. So sample statistic is when I give you data based on who I asked. And population is when I give you data based on the whole group. Okay? So, you're only going to have 2 choices for multiple choice for this one. It's either going to be sample or it's going to be population. Now, on your exam, you have 1 question. But in here, I gave you 2 questions just to give you another one to look at. 30% of all stat students have a car. What is that one?
Population.
That one's a population parameter because I'm talking about all, the whole thing. We good? Some of you are like, ooh, I'm so glad we're reviewing. Okay, number 2. Given a statistic, given data, and given the margin of error, find the confidence interval. We actually did this last week, but this was when you had it so that I told you, remember the very first day of class when I gave y'all those index cards and I said 75% of y'all have a cell phone and the margin of error is 5%? Give me the confidence interval. That's what this is. So if I give you a statistic, if I give you data, so for this one, it says, given blah, 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 find the confidence interval. So we wiggle off the mean. The average body temperature is 98.2 with a margin of error of 0.1. So 98.2 is going to be my mean. That's what I wiggle off of. And then my margin of error is what I'm going to add and what I'm going to subtract. So my confidence interval is going to be 98.1 to 98.3. You take your mean, you wiggle off your mean. And I am recording today so that I will post that out on YouTube if you need to go back and look at anything. Now, remember the test is multiple choice. So all those answers are going to start looking alike. So just be careful that when you look at your answer choices, some of y'all are going to start second guessing yourself. What I usually say is do the problem, then try to match up the answer. So for this one, 98.1 to 98.3. Yay? All right, number 3. Determine whether the statement is based on a census or a sample. A census is when you have to ask everybody. The people living under the bridge, the people living in their car, the people in jail. We want to ask everybody. That's a census. A sample is when we're only asking a handful of people. Okay? So if I give you a problem, you want to determine the average height of all basketball players in the United States. Which one's going to be more practical?
Practical sample.
Which one's going to be more practical?
Sample.
Can I physically, logically ask every single high school basketball player in the United States? No. So for this one, a sample is going to be more realistic because it's going to be hard to ask every high school ball player. So you have to know the difference between the two to know which one's going to be better to do. All right, you only have one of these, but I put another one up there. You want to determine the average age of all stats instructors at the University of Colorado. Which one's more practical?
Census.
For this one, we can do a census because there's not that many people to ask. So it's okay for me to ask everybody logically. Good? I gave you 2 examples. You only have one on the exam. All right, next page. This was the page where we talked about how do we ask the people? How do we survey the people? There's random, there's stratified, there's systematic, there's cluster, and there's convenience. Now, you only have one of these on the test. On the spreadsheet, it's number 4. Determine the type of sampling. Is it random? Is it stratified? Is it systematic? Is it cluster? Is it convenience? Well, I gave you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to practice, even though you only have one on the exam. Now, I came down here to remind you, because it's been a while, this is not on the exam, but this is just so that you can have it in your brain. Simple random is when you reach in and grab. I'm going to ask this person my survey. I'm going to ask this person my survey. So simple random is when you like close your eyes and reach in, or the computer just randomly gives you something. Systematic, you're going to ask every 5th person. There's a method to my madness. I am systematically, we had to go to the right every time Madison and I were in the mall. We had a system. So systematic is when you ask every 10th person, or every 9th person, or every other person. Convenience, you ask who's in front of you. When I did y'all's sample the very first day of class, I surveyed y'all because y'all were in the room with me. Some of y'all, if you have to do surveys for other classes, you ask your family members because they're in the house with you. Okay? So convenience is you ask people that you see conveniently. These are the 2 that get people. Cluster, honey nut clusters is a group. Cluster is when you have all these classrooms. You go to Miss Jones' classroom, you ask everybody in that class to fill out a survey. You randomly pick another teacher, Mr. Smith. You ask everybody in Mr. Smith's class. So cluster sampling is when you have to ask everybody within the group you pick. Okay? Every semester we have student observations about teachers. Not every teacher is asked to give it to their students. Certain teachers are just picked and said, ask all your students. That would be cluster sampling. Stratified sampling is when we have all the classrooms, but I go to Mr. Smith and I say, well, you, and you come outside and take a survey. So I'm only picking a group of people within the group that I pick. Are we good? So this part is not on the exam. I'm not going to tell you this stuff, but this is just so that I can get it back in your brain. Now, you have one of these, but we're going to do a couple. On the test, you will be given, not necessarily in that order, but you'll be given all 5 of those choices. An engineering student measures the strength of fingers to push a button, and he tests his family members. What kind is that going to be? Convenience. That is convenience. They conveniently are in front of them. The IRS investigates false reporting of tip income by waiters and waitresses, surveying all waiters and waitresses at 20 randomly selected restaurants.
all, like a cluster?
This one is gonna be cluster. If I think about it in my mind, like this is Restaurant Row, these are all the restaurants. I go to Longhorn and I ask all waiters and waitresses at Longhorn. I go down the road, I go to Redbone Alley. I ask all the people at Redbone Alley. I go down the road, Waffle House. I ask everybody at Waffle House. Y'all with me? So you've got to think about it in terms of, okay, let me lay it out. How am I asking? MTV is doing a survey with 500 people. We are randomly selecting 500 people from each of these age groups. Which one is that one going to be? This is who? Raise your hand if you think it's random. Stratified? Systematic? Cluster? Convenience? Have no clue. Okay, so for this one, I go back to, in this room, I put teenagers. In this room, I put people in their 20s. In this room, I put people in their 30s. In this room, I put people in their 80s. I mean, I'm not really doing that, but that's how I'm thinking about it. I have all my teenagers together, all my 20-year-olds, my 30-year-olds, my 40-year-olds, my 50-year-olds. Now, am I going to the teenagers and picking every single teenager? No. It says I'm picking 500 people. So I'm picking a few teenagers, and then I go to another group, and I'm picking a few people in my 30s. You with me? So this one is going to be stratified. I'm getting a couple people from this group, and a few people from this group, and a few people from this group to make up my 500 people. I'm not taking all of the teenagers. A professor surveyed students in their classroom to obtain a sample data consisting of the number of credit cards they possess. What type is that? A teacher asked their students. This one is going to be convenience. It's exactly like what I did with y'all. I came in, y'all were in front of me, so let me ask you some questions. Fundraisers.
Could it not be stratified too?
Surveyed students. You could fight that one. She's saying stratified because you may not have asked everybody. There may have been some people that were out, gone to the bathroom, whatever. You could fight that one. Fundraisers test a telemarketing campaign by obtaining an ABC order of everybody and selecting the 100th name on the list.
Systematic.
That one is systematic. There's a method to my madness. I have to have a system. In a Gallup poll of 1,059 students, the interview subjects were selected by using a computer to randomly generate phone numbers. That one's going to be random. It's the new school way of reaching in and pulling a name. They just do it with a computer. You only have one of those, but I gave you several to practice. Okay? And then there's what we need to review. All right, number 5. Got a couple of these on the test in several different formats. For this one, we want to know, is it ratio, nominal, ordinal, or interval? So this is what my answer choices are going to look like. For me, it's a lot easier for me to go all the way across. So I'm going to scroll. I gave you only have one of these, but I gave you 4 to practice. Down here, I'm not giving this to you, but it's just to remind you. We have qualitative and quantitative. The L stands for letters, the N stands for numbers. So letter answers, number answers. Qualitative is nominal and ordinal. Nominal means just a name. Ordinal means I can put it in an order. Best, okay, sucks. Okay? Quantitative is numbers. Continuous can be any number. Discrete can only be certain numbers, like your shoe sizes. You wear a 7, a 7.5, an 8, an 8.5. You can't wear a 7.29 shoe. Dress sizes, you wear an 8 or a 10 or a 9 or 11. You don't wear an 8.46. So discrete means it's only certain numbers. Continuous means it's any number. Then each of those, the O in ratio reminds me that 0 equals 0. O, 0 equals 0. So if you ate 0 cookies, you ate nothing. If you gained 0 pounds, you gained nothing. So ratio is when O means O, when 0 means 0. Interval, and this goes for both of these, interval is when 0 means something other than 0. If it's 0 degrees outside, that doesn't mean there's nothing outside. If I ate 0 cookies, I ate nothing. But if it's 0 degrees, it doesn't mean nothing. It means it's cold. If you wear a size 0, you're skinny. If you were born in the year 0, you were born with dinosaurs and trees and dirty water and whatever. So these are some instances where 0 does not mean nothing. 0 means something. It means you're skinny, I hate you, or it means I'm freezing, or it means I didn't have any electricity. So for this problem, they only want you to give them this last bit. But I like to do everything. So if we're doing the weights of college textbooks, so it weighs 6 ounces or it weighs 1 pound 4 ounces, is that qualitative or quantitative? Quantitative, which then means we're going to go off to discrete or continuous. Can it be any number or can it be certain numbers? It can be any number, so that's continuous. And finally, ratio or interval. What does 0 mean? If your book weighs 0 ounces, that is ratio, because in this class, I didn't make you buy a book. So if you stand in line and the teacher says weigh all your books, y'all's books are going to weigh 0 ounces because there's nothing there. 0 means 0. 0 means there's nothing there. So for this problem, that's all they want. They just want the last thing, but for me it's easier to do the whole thing. A critic's movie, recommendations, must see, good, fair, poor, or avoid. Qualitative or quantitative?
Qualitative.
Qualitative, is it nominal or ordinal?
Ordinal.
Ordinal, because we can put them all in the same order. If I say that it's a must-see, we're all going to like it. If I say avoid, it sucks. Movie types. What types of movies do you like? Horror, drama, comedy, love story. Qualitative or quantitative?
Qualitative.
Qualitative, because the answers have letters. Is it nominal or ordinal?
Nominal.
This is nominal because we cannot put them in the same order for everybody. Drama's not going to be number 1 for everybody. Comedy's not going to be number 2 for everybody. Body temperatures in Fahrenheit of all students in the stats class. Quantitative, because you may be 98.7 or 98.2. Is it discrete or continuous?
Continuous.
I could go either way for this one because it's according to what kind of thermometer you have. Ordinal, blah, 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 interval ratio.
Interval.
This one is interval because if your temperature is 0 degrees, that doesn't mean there's nothing there. That means there's a dead body we've got to hide. So it doesn't mean 0 doesn't mean nothing. Cool? All coming back to you. Here was another one. You run a race in Boston Marathon. What is it? My bad. Gave you a hint. You run a race in a Boston Marathon. So if I said, y'all, I ran a race over the weekend,
We want to know the time of it?
I want to know,
How
is
fast?
it interval or is it ratio?
Ratio.
So somebody could say, I ran the Boston Marathon in 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 39 seconds.
Yeah.
But in order to do interval and ratio, you have to ask yourself, what does 0 mean? So if Ms. Cooper said, I ran the turkey trot in 0 seconds, 0 minutes, and 0 hours, I did nothing. So 0 means 0. 0 means I didn't do jack squat. Cool? All right. Rolling. Number 6. Same kind of question. It says, for this one, you have to tell me everything. So it's really like what we just did on the last one, except I'm going to give you answers where it's everything. Now, this is not going to be given to you. So remember I said, there's some things that you just need to dump your brain. This may be one that as soon as I give you your pink paper and say start, you can start writing. You just cannot bring it in. It's got to be from up here. So, finish times. You're not going to have this, but finish times. Qualitative or quantitative? Quantitative because they're numbers. Discrete or continuous?
Continuous.
Continuous, because if you're in the New York City Marathon, they have that thing that tells you down to the t-tiny second. And then interval or ratio, what does 0 mean?
Ratio.
Means I did nothing. So this one is going to be quantitative, continuous, and ratio, because 0 means I did nothing. So you're going to have to find the one that has all of those. And sometimes they're not in order, but they just have to have all of them. Home nations, such as the U.S., France, or Kenya. Qualitative or quantitative?
Qualitative.
Qualitative, nominal or ordinal?
Nominal.
Nominal, because we don't know who's the best team because they're just naming them. Cool? Number 7. We have not used our formula sheet yet. So, for the first 6 questions, we didn't use our formula sheet. Now, what I did is at the very bottom, I pulled your formula sheet. I'm trying to help y'all. This is the first page of the formula sheet that I'm going to give you. Y'all, you have a 5-page formula sheet. You don't need to know all that stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go to this sheet and I'm going to say, okay, this is the first time we've used our formula sheet, so we need to know the absolute error. This is going to be a formula that we got to know on our exam. We don't have to know it, we just have to know how to use it and where to find it. So absolute error came from the first page of my formula sheet. So I'm going to come back to wherever I was. The directions are going to say, calculate the absolute error. This came from my formula sheet. It's what they claim it to be minus what it actually is. You purchase lunch, they gave you $2.75, but you were supposed to get $2.75, but the actual amount they gave you was $1.75. So what did they give you? What did they claim you were supposed to get? $1.75. What was the true change? $2.75. So $1.75, that was the mistake. $1.75 was the mistake. $2.75 was what you should have actually gotten. So when I subtract those, my absolute error is going to be -1. Now, because this is a multiple choice test, they're going to give you +1 and they're going to give you -1 to make you sit there and go, ooh, did I really do this right or did I screw it up? So just pay attention to what you're plugging in, because they are going to put those answers there to suck you in. Calculate the relative change. This one is also on our formula sheet. And they're not going to be in this order on the test. I'm just doing this because this is the order that I'm going in. Relative change is when we do new minus old over old times 100. That's my whoop whoop. So, how do they relate? In 1990, I had 20 students. In 2017, I have 50 students. So my new value is going to be today. My old value is going to be 1990, and we always divide by the old because that's who we refer to. Your reference is who you refer to. So for this problem, let me find my page again and scroll down. It says, it's just going to say calculate the relative change. This is from your formula sheet. This January, there were that many flights. In January of 1996, there were that many flights. So your new value is what you did today, which is this January. Your old value is what you did back in the day. Divide it by the old, new minus old over old, times 100. So I'm going to subtract those two, get an answer. Then I'm going to divide by this, get an answer. And then this is just your whoop whoop. That's going to turn it into a percent for you. The good news is, all the answers are gonna be rounded to the 10th, or all the answers are gonna be rounded to the 100th. So you really don't even have to worry about the rounding part. We good? Stem and leaf plot. Okay? Stem and leaf plot. I'm gonna give, it says use the stem and leaf plot to answer a question. So I'm gonna give you a stem and leaf plot, and you're gonna answer a question about it. What age was the youngest actress?